Hello and welcome to a talkie on the Bearfoot Miniatures channel. Today, me and Phil are going to be going over the Chaos Dwarfs, and that will complete the Chaos trifecta of Beastmen, Warriors of Chaos, and Chaos Dwarfs. Basically, we're going to be going over the army special rules, characters, magic items, and laws. We're going to do the Sorcerer Prophet first before magic items, laws, because it would then give a bit of more context to those magic items that we're going to be doing. And then we're going to be dropping back into the characters, doing some comparisons of the units, and how you can make the Mega Thomas the Tank Engine train that I think we all want to do as Chaos Dwarfs, right? As a general overview of Chaos Dwarfs, you're going to have a very tough army in dwarfish style. Basically, you've got all the positives of dwarfs, which is like you've got high toughness pretty consistently across the list. You've got good war machines, ranged weapons. And added to that, you've also got the benefits of chaos, which is you've got good magic. You've got good across the army, pretty much all strength 4 for all the dwarf units. Higher weapon skills, just on average, so your ranged units, which are just based on the guard. They're all weapon skill 4 and strength 4, so you can have this hybrid unit that's doing both shooting and combat better than, say, the comparative dwarf unit of Thunderers or Quarrelers will be doing their shooting and then getting into combat. There's higher ballistic skills in some of the artillery pieces, like such as the Iron Demon has a higher ballistic skill than the Dwarf Organ Gun, which is like got the same weapon as the Iron Demon carries. So you've got some good positives there. Now, the downsides is that comparatively to regular dwarves, you've not got the runic items, so you're not as flexible with what you can give your lords and heroes. You've got the low movement speed, at least within the Chaos Dwarf parts of the list. However, that is somewhat mitigated by the fact that you've got access to, as a rare choice granted, you've got Hobgoblin Wolf Riders, which are, I think, incredibly good for their points value with the movement 9 of the Wolves. So you've got these mitigating factors that can be used in the standard fast cavalry role that dwarves normally lack. You've also, as a downside, got the Resolute rule, which is a special rule which we'll get into in the special rules section, but that actually can sometimes be flipped on its head and made into a bit of a strength in the fallback in good order. So overall, I think you've got a very powerful list. It's not like the most broken of the brokens, but it's just a very solid, consistent list that I think is going to do very well in this edition of the game. So without further ado, let's get into the Black Shard armor. This is something that Phil will be joining me on because actually I'm recording this a day later because the audio quality for just the first 2 minutes was so bad. Black Shard armor, very good, allows you to cast in, allows your wizards to cast while wearing armor, which is a very powerful buff. It's not as good as Chaos armor, which is a bit weird because Chaos Dwarfs form, or they forge Chaos armor that then gives a normal ward save to the Chaos factions. However, it's available on more things. So the Black Shard armor, very good, especially for those wizards, just to give them that bit more survivability and armor save, and that will play into their like sort of dwarfiness of toughness, as well as then stacking with armor saves across the list. Next, so a lot of this with Black Shard armor is going to come into effect where you have, say, a Tzeentch army that all the attacks are magical, or whatever Tzeentch units, fire spells from the lore of battle or battle magic,
yep,
which is a lower casting spell levels compared to other lores, like Fireball being the base spell, flaming, Dragon Breath, flaming. And there's a lot of things that actually add this flaming effect that you will start getting this ward save. Obviously, it's not as good as Chaos armor, which just has a ward save versus everything, but Black Shard armor pops up more frequently.
yeah. I don't think it's I don't think it's something that should be ignored at all, because there are things as well, like in the ogre book where you've got the Dragonhide banner where it rerolls ones of misses, but it also gives you attacks flaming. So there are more and more things that actually gain flaming. So yeah, I think it's really really good. You'll see a few things. I think the High Elves have got somewhere counts as magical but flaming attacks as well. So this will pop up there as well with that.
Yes. Now, blazing body. This is a more specific unit rule, isn't it? So we'll skip past that. Ensorcelled weapons. This is when you're using a hand weapon. You gain armor piercing of -1. And having used this a lot with my Chaos Army, and thought about like what army or what weapons I should be upgrading to, this will come into that choice all the time. So like halberds, this this almost makes it sound like it's a negative thing, but halberds being a -1 to armor piercing, well, you already have that with your ensorcelled weapons, and it's such a good thing to have all the time that you
Yeah.
get half of the benefits of halberds just straight off.
Well, I think you've got a choice then. So if you upgrade to a halberd, a great weapon, whatever, you can still go at a higher initiative with. If you've got a great weapon, you can go at a higher initiative, although dwarf initiative is very low, and still get that -1 there as well. So you get a bit of choice depending on what's attacking you at the time.
Yes. Resolute, this is dwarf rule, -1 modifier to the result of any flee or pursuit roll that you make. Sounds like a drawback all the time. However, Phil, Ian awared me of this because it works on your Fabigo. Fall back in good order to anyone that's not heard Fabigo yet. It actually means that you'll get pushed back less in each combat. So if you only get pushed back 3, you'll now get pushed back 2, and they get less of an initiative bonus when they follow up. So it can actually situationally be a little bit useful. So it's not always a negative.
I think the key word here is flee roll, isn't it? Because with for Bigo or fall back in good order, that you roll a flee roll, so that's where it comes in there. But yeah, it means that you get to keep that battle line still quite high. Also, you're still able to there. You're not going to be open up your lines as much, so it's a negative and a positive in some ways as well.
Yeah. And Stampede specific rule, your impact hits, armor piercing -2, good, but is a specific rule, as well as like Hellbound and Backstab and Blazing Body. So let's get on to the weapons of Zar Nagrund, which we've put these here because they're going to be affecting multiple units, like starting out with the Sorcerer, which is how we tend to give a bit of context to the magic weapons. Most of these can be taken by the Sorcerer. So Phil, do you want to take
Yeah.
us through the weapons?
Yeah, sure. The first one, Blood of Hashut. It's a single-use item, and you get to make D6 hits with it. But you wound on the model's armor value, not on its toughness value. So if a model's got a 2-up save, you wound on a 2-up. It then also ignores armor as well. Counts as flaming and magical attacks. So for one use, you get D6 hits. You roll a single roll to hit, then you get D6 hits. You wound on the armor value, that then ignores armor, that counts as flaming, and is also magical.
Yes, so very good. Like to
Very
just
good.
like haba and just
Yeah,
throw it into the face of an enemy character, right? Like
yeah,
the better they are, the better it will work.
that's it. And most characters have got like a 2-up or 3-up save, so it's actually really good. Just go. Whoop. I imagine that he throws it like that.
Well, as in like Pocket Sam throws it.
Yeah, pocket blood.
Yeah, like, I think that's the best way to envision it. So, Dark Forged Weapons. It's a hand weapon that can be used in conjunction with the Ensorcelled Weapons special rule. In addition, before the first turn begins, you get one of these random effects. Gain flaming attacks on a 1. Okay, good against Vampire Counts and Tomb Kings. Can give some people a better ward save. things like that.
Yeah.
Malignant, you gain the Hatred All Enemies special rule. Absolutely excellent.
Amazing.
Yeah. Life Bane, multiple wounds D3, which like is as good as any magical weapon. What's this?
Warmer.
Dwarma Leech. Bearer gains magic resistance -1. Okay. So I want that hatred more though. Hellforged, strength characteristic +1, which essentially makes your ensorcelled weapon into a halberd that can be used in conjunction with a shield.
Yep.
And Spell Rot, +120 casting roll that you make. If you're not a wizard, you go to -2 AP, including that ensorcelled weapon. Very good.
Amazing. I mean, you can't rely on the benefit you're going to get because it is always random every game. But there is no downside to any of these. Yeah, you probably don't want flaming attacks most of the time, but the rest of them are all really, really good.
Yeah, so on a 1, it's like a neutral result against a lot of things, except for, like, there's edge cases where it's like you're going to give a great ward save to dwarfs on like a 3-up ward, and there's negatives where it's there's positives against like Tomb Kings and Vampire Counts where you're going to get like double wounds and stuff like that.
Yeah. So there's no negatives with it at all, but there are just some that are outstandingly good as well. And if you've got multiple of these in a unit as well, imagine being like magic resistance -1, but your main fighter guy has got D3 wounds. It's just going to get... It's really, really good, this weapon, as a standard, and they pop up quite frequently as well.
Yeah, so that's something that, by multiple in a unit, you mean, say, a couple of characters in the unit, rather than a unit that has got multiple of the...
Yeah, so like a Sorceress, Sense Child in a unit, you can start possibly stacking the buffs, but it's always random though, so it's something to bear in mind. Don't rely on that as a battle plan, because you'll probably try and do it and then go, oh, what, that magic resistance -2? Oh, I haven't got it. So it's nice to have, just don't rely on it, that's all.
Yeah. Fire Glaives, you've got 2 methods of using these. One that's range 18, strength 4, AP -1 with Armor Bane 1. And in combat, it's strength +1, AP -1, Armor Bane 1, and both require 2 hands, is how I read that one. But it doesn't matter that the ranged one requires 2 hands.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's a ranged weapon. Brilliant weapon. 18 range is quite short. Yeah, it's not great. But the fact you've just got that -1 strength 4 on the shooting, and you also get that in combat as well, I think it's really versatile and probably one of the best weapons in the game, because you've got a unit then that can shoot and go into combat as well quite comfortably as well. So yeah, really, really good there as well.
Yeah, well, it's worth noting that because standing shoots add to combat res, even if you've just got a character, like just a single character with a Fireglaive in a unit, rather than holding, you stand and shoot and just have the chance of gaining a +1 combat res. And it's even if it's just for that, I think it's then worth it. You got the return of the blunderbuss, the absolute bane in 6th. The things that kept Chaos Dwarf armies in the game, I think, in 6th edition. Where we've got the Hail Shot blunderbuss. Range 12. I imagine it's not strength 12. AP 3. Oh, strength 3. God, this is throwing me this table being wrong. AP -1, multiple shots D3, and volley fire. So you can have half of your second rank firing even if you're on a level ground. However, when you roll your D3, you don't suffer penalties for long range using the multiple shots and stand and shoot. In addition, if 20 or more models belonging to the same unit shoot with a blunderbuss, they may re-roll any natural 1s when rolling to wound. So encouraging you to take 21, so 3 ranks of 7 Chaos Dwarves.
No, it's even more than that though, because it's if 20 or more models belonging to the same unit shoot at the same target.
Yeah.
So you have to have 15 wide
Yeah,
to then get that.
yes, because half of the second rank to fighter.
Yeah. So you'd have a 15 wide line of blunderbusses.
So a proper volley fire. I
Yeah.
always think these are slightly too short ranged, but because it pops up in the Bretonian Arcane Journal,
Right.
I come down on them being too short range, but I think if used en masse, could potentially be devastating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just wiping stuff out, especially if you're firing with 20. Like,
I mean, I think that you're a dwarf, your toughness 4, most shooting, small arm shooting is strength 3, so it's going to be really hard. You'll see through the Chaos Dwarf entry, most things have got armor as well, so you've got that save. If you know you're going to take a charge, you can always just reform into a massive long line. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to be fine. And then you re-roll all your ones they hit and get something like 30 shots off at something. It's very niche. And I just think that the Fireglaive outshines this weapon a little bit because its versatility, but absolute laugh when you do it for the first time.
yeah, and then finally we've got the Naphtha bombs, which are range 6, strength 3, AP dash, but flaming attacks, ponderous, and quick shot. So ponderous meaning that you can't be using them as a standard shoot,
Yeah,
but you can run up to someone and hiya and
yeah.
throw at range. Like,
Pocket bomb.
well, not quite pocket.
Bomb.
I don't think it's pocket bomb because it's not in combat, but like you can just have a lone character that runs about like bomb. Here's a mildly effective bomb because it's only strength 3 and AP dash.
But each hit causes D3 plus 1 hits.
I still don't think it's many for the platforms that it usually goes on. Like, and you've got to hit with
possibly
it.
not.
Well,
Possibly not.
we'll see in the army list entries just where it goes. But yeah, that's a quick rundown so that we've got a slight feeling of the weapons and special rules before we like really dive into the list. So let's get into the first character, which is the Sorcerer Lord. There. So onto the Sorcerer Lord, we have this basically the Sorcerer Lord coming first, or the Sorcerers of Hashut coming first, because they are the main leaders of the army, rather than being like a normal combat dwarf. They're sort of a hybrid.
A little bit, yeah. So you have like weapon skill 5, which you don't tend to see on a sorcerer level character. Toughness, strength 4 and toughness 5. So you're getting up to that dwarf lord character toughness as well. 3 wounds, pretty standard. Initiative 2, yeah, dwarf stat. 3 attacks, so you're good in combat with those attacks.
Yeah.
Leadership 10, again, you've got that lord level fighter character leadership. 195 points, a steal. The sorcerer prophet is a level 3 as standard as well. So a bit of a steal, to be honest.
Yeah, so that's comparable to a Chaos Lord, which, although a Chaos Lord does have better, like say, weapon skill and strength, isn't a level 3 wizard, which is usually priced at about 90 points.
Yeah.
So that's fairly crazily good. You've got access to demonology, dark magic, and elementalism. Demonology.
All very, yeah, amazing lore. Love that lore.
Yeah.
Really strong. Great magic missile, great buffs to your units. Demonic vigor will really help the Chaos Dwarf army. Makes them faster, makes them strong, makes them faster, gives them better initiative. So I think it's better toughness as well, just off the top of my head.
Between demonic vessel and vigor, you've definitely got the toughness, strength, attacks, and weapon skill, movement.
Get both.
Yeah.
Get both.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
Dark magic is like a reasonable lore. Elementalism has travel mystical pathway, which is one of the funniest if you start thinking about it in your head sounding spells of any of them. So, other than that, like, it can give you Earthen Ramparts, which is a fairly good spell if you're on the defensive and going to just be standing shooting, say with your fire pikes.
Yeah.
I like all of those three laws, the laws that I've chosen, say like with Bretonians for elementalism and Demonology Dark Magic with Chaos, a fair amount.
They're very good laws. They're my three favourite, to be perfectly honest. Elementalism has got ways to mess around with people's movement. With is it gust of wind or gale wind? Where they fall back, they give ground if you hit them with it. So really good stuff. Really plays into the slow moving dwarf ethos there. So yeah, brilliant straight off the bat.
Yep. Weapons options, we've got Darkforged Weapon, Nap the Bombs, and Blood of Hashut. You see, this is where, like, I wouldn't give my Sorcerer Nap the Bombs. Darkforged Weapons, if I was just going a little bit cheaper on the combat stuff. Darkforged Weapons are solid. Like, as we've just gone through them, they're good.
Yeah.
But they're not Lord level good, because they're a bit more random. That's my feeling with them.
I mean, for 10 points, you're getting a solid magic weapon. You're not getting a great magic weapon. You're just getting a solid magic weapon, aren't you, really?
Yeah, this is what I mean.
So,
yeah.
Blood
of Hashut.
I would take the Dark Forge. Yeah.
20 points a vial. I'd take a couple.
Take it. Yeah. Take it.
So I'd 100% recommend taking a Lore Familiar as some of your 100 points cap. For any of them, like level 3 or 4 as the Sorcerer Prophet, because it just ensures what spells you're going to get, which I think is so worthwhile. Now, you can obviously take the Spell Familiar and get an additional spell, which is also a good option, but you've still got that 1 in 6 chance, and it's just whether or not you prefer to roll the 5 spells and not have one. Go on, Phil.
Spell Familiar is a chaos item, not a common magic item.
So I definitely recommend, and I think Phil would agree, taking the Lore Familiar, especially with the level 3 and 4, to ensure what spell you've got. And because it just means that it takes that risk out of a third of the time, even with your level 4, you're not getting the spells that you want on the Sorcerer. And a third of the time is a fair amount of games to be risking. Now, before we go on to the magic items, let's do the special rules that are for Sorcerers Hashut. You've got Infernal Engineer. Unless fleeing or engaged in combat once per turn, a friendly war machine within its command range may reroll 1 scatter dice or artillery dice. Really good for the Thomas the Tank Engine style demon trains of artillery that we'll be getting onto later. And the Sorcerer's Curse.
I think with that, the Infernal Engineer, the fact that you get to do it once a turn, it's not once, it's once per turn.
Yeah.
So it's just making those war machines so much more reliable in where they're going. I'll even make it into sort of like catapults, sort of like more reliable on hitting your unit as well. So yeah, really like that. Infernal Engineer is great, absolutely great.
Yeah, just to have it as like a passive buff to what is already a sorcerer. So it's like I know it's like all eggs in one basket sort of thing, but that can be sometimes quite a good thing when it's a very solid basket.
Yeah.
The Sorcerer's Curse. If this model miscasts a spell, it must immediately make a toughness test. If it's failed, it loses a single wound and gains a +1 modifier to its toughness characteristic instead of rolling on the miscast table. If the test is passed, it rolls on the miscast table as normal. Actually, I know you've got 3 wounds, but if you, on one of the mounts that we're going to get onto in a second, losing a wound to gain +1 toughness may not be such a bad thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good thing, to be honest, because you just make your lord or, your character, more reliable to be staying around. Imagine it, like, you miscast once, I've lost a wound, fair enough, on 2 wounds, but toughness 6. So most things are going to be wounding you on 6s or on 5s.
Yeah.
Really, really good. I think it's only really high-end combat characters that are gonna start being able to wound you on threes. I'm thinking more like Chaos Lord there, which is a nightmare for everybody if you get into combat with one.
Yeah, and these two rules are things that are on both the Sorcerer Prophets as well as the Demonsmith Sorcerers. So, although, say, the Infernal Engineer may not come into it as much if you're, say, mounted on a Lamassu or a Bull Taurus, a Bull Taurus? A Bull Taurus. A Bale
Yeah,
Taurus or Great Taurus.
Bale Taurus are great Taurus.
Yeah, because you might want to be running around a bit more, not with your artillery train. But the fact that it's on all of them just means you can hop in and out and cover weaknesses, even with your fast characters that may most of the time want to be doing other things. So, let's go on to the mounts, Phil.
Perfect.
Do you want to go over the Bale Taurus, or do you want to go over the Great Taurus?
Go over the Bale Taurus. It's the Sorcerer Prophet unique one. So these come underneath the Great Tauruses in the monster section. And the Bale Taurus, movement 6, weapon skill 5, strength 6, +1 to toughness, +4 wounds, initiative 3, 4 attacks. Pretty, it's just below dragon kind of thing there. It's 160 points, I said. That's good value, that.
It's a bit of a steal. It's a bit of a steal.
Yeah. And then the Great Taurus, movement 6, weapon skill 5, strength 5, no plus to toughness, still your +4 wounds, initiative 3, 4 attacks, 120 points.
3 attacks.
And this is where the Demonsmith Sorcerer can take this one. So it can't take the Bale Taurus, can only take the Great Taurus. Now, you've got a plethora of rules on these as well. So they are behemoths, so it's increasing your command range, which is really good for that Infernal Engineer.
Yeah, as well as getting the AP on your stomp attacks.
As well as -2 AP in your stomp attacks. So you've got Blazing Body, Born of Fire, Close Order, Fly 9, Furious Charge. So on the charge, it's got an extra attack. Large target. The Bale Taurus gets D3 +1 stomp attacks. The Great Taurus just gets D3. Swift Stride and Terror.
Yes. Shall we go
Take a second there.
Shall we go to Blazing Body and Born of Fire? Right.
Yeah.
So Blazing Body is at the start of every combat phase. Any model friend or foe that is in base contact with this model that does not also have this special rule suffers a single strength 3 with AP dash, flaming attacks. Nice to just have. It's fair, like good against chaff. You're killing without armor saves, but you're doing half wounds to most things like Men of the Empire, Bretonnians, skeletons, zombies. Really, like Skaven, really good chaff killer. Born of Fire.
A Bale Taurus and Great Taurus has a 3+1 save against any wounds suffered that were inflicted caused by an attack that had the flaming attack special rules.
Yeah, and as the better save, than what is it? Black Spire armor, Dark Shard armor.
Black Shard armor.
Black Shard armor. As the better save, you can choose to use that obviously with your Sorcerer Prophet if you are mounted on this. Incredibly good to just have.
Brilliant Ward is amazing. Imagine that the first time somebody's playing against these and goes, "Oh, I'm in combat with my Zeech Warriors of Chaos. Right, they've all got flaming attacks. Right, I've got a 3-up ward."
Yeah, and this is something that's I believe it's a 10 or 20 point magic item in other lists, just baked into the cost. So, like, just when you start doing a cost breakdown of the Great Taurus, is immediately worth that little bit extra because of that rule. Furious Charge is an excellent rule to have.
Brilliant.
Yeah, because of that +1 attacks, it's adding 20% to your value because you're almost always going to be on the charge.
Yep.
Now, most of your attacks are going to be with Trampling Hooves, which are strength user AP -1 and flaming attacks. So that AP -1 is slightly worse than, say, like the Abyssal Terror from Vampire Counts, which is AP -2. But what you do have is Goring Horns, that's strength +1, AP -3, flaming attacks and strike first. And although you can only do one of your attacks with that, the AP -3 all the time, rather than say relying on killing blow that most other things have, and then adding in your sorcerer's attacks on top of that, I think he's really, really good.
The weird thing is with Gorging Horns, I really like that, and I like it where we have these split profile attacks kind of thing. And I don't mean that in a rule sense. What I mean is that you have two weapons on most big behemoths, and one of them is like it offers something different. Gorging Horns isn't on the charge; it's just all the time.
Yeah.
Which is something that it's not a bad, great thing, but it's an odd thing to me because I'd imagine it like you're seeing the ball going in, charging, but no, really, really good. Again, the only plus side or downside is the fact that it's got flaming attacks. Flaming attacks, as we've been saying, have been great against you, but if you're playing against somebody else who gets benefits when they're hit by a flaming attack, I'm thinking Beastman, they've got the blackened plate, which is a 3 ward save against flaming attacks. This is going to bounce a little bit, but still really good.
Now, it is worth saying with that, because I do bang on about flaming attacks being a negative against a bunch of armies, and that's because, say, like, dwarfs are quite prevalent in our area, and indeed most, but it's usually centered around one model or like a couple of models that have these mega ward saves versus flaming attacks. And when they're a positive to you, it's usually a positive against the entire army. So whenever you're hearing us, like Phil just then, but me as well, whenever you hear us saying a negative thing about flaming attacks, that's the sort of balance that you have to think about. Overall, I do think both of these are very good. Like, strengths and weaknesses of both. I do err towards the Great Taurus because you're getting those +4 wounds anyway, and that's the main thing I'm thinking about. By the time I'm toughness 5 with my Chaos Dwarf Lord, the 40 points being better spent elsewhere is personally a better thing.
See, with my Prophet, Sorcerer Prophet, I really like the Baal Taurus. And the reason I like my Baal Taurus is because if I miscast once, I'm toughness 7.
Yeah,
and
true.
and that makes it, nearly everything's wounding you on 6s, or some things aren't and stop wounding you. So like, I really like the Baal Taurus. 160 points, I think it's super cheap, real steal.
Yeah, well, I think either way, I'm just sort of thinking that in terms of it's an extra wizard level somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the way that it sort of computes in my mind.
Yeah.
But let's go on to the Lamassu, which is 95 points, movement 6, but it's fly 9, so F for movement 6. Weapon skill 4, strength 5, +3 wounds, initiative 2 and 2 attacks. So very much the little brother of the other two mounts. It's got a 50 by 75 mil base, so you will fit into tighter gaps. And I think its uses are different. This is where when I was saying about the -1 AP on the hooves, now comes to -2 that we'd see, like that I mentioned about being the Abyssal Terrors, -2. The Mace Tail and the Sorceress Exaltation of the Lamassu are both -2 AP. It's got Armor Bane 2 on all of it, just flat. It's got Furious Charge, large target, magic resistance -3, which is immense. Sorcerous Miasma, stomp attacks D3, swift stride and terror. So the Sorcerous Miasma does during the combat phase, enemy model that uses a magic weapon to attack the character's mount, or a character mounted on a Lamassu, counts as being armed with a simple hand weapon instead. That's really good. That's really good.
Really, really good. There is a lot of armies that rely on magical weapons to make their fighting characters good. Elves are one of them. they rely on like really hard hitting magical items. So this just goes not doing that anymore. Um, the only thing it doesn't here, it doesn't. I don't know much about dwarves, but I don't know if it addresses dwarf runic items because I don't know if they're classed as a magic weapon.
They do actually affect dwarf magic items because a runic item is counted as a magic item in all respects, other than
Yeah.
the crafting of them. It means that the mace of Empire-ness that bashes people at multiple wounds D6 just doesn't work. It's such a good little special rule on this 95-point creature. It's kind of insane.
Do you know? I would be going because there's a big thing about talking is that spectral doppelganger and taking magic weapons.
Mm.
This would be my missile unit to go after every single wizard.
Yeah, and by that you
Because-
mean like to just charge right into.
Just charge right in. I'm going to challenge the person. Right, I get a champion. What do you do? Next time we're in combat again, I'm going to challenge the wizard. Spectral doppelganger. You're now striking with your strength 3 weapon. You're already toughness 5 anyway, so it's 6s. I think it's really good. It will neuter so many combat characters as well. They're relying on that magical weapon. I think this is like the little bit of like it's not a great in combat, we can see that here, but it's a little bit of a sleeper one because it'll be a great challenge lord. Because most are tooled up to the nines to try and kill the thing that they're in the challenge with.
Yeah, now I was more thinking of this as, say, like a secondary level character and getting as do you know how you would think of, like, say, an Empire captain on a not a hippogriff, on a Pegasus?
Griffin.
On a Pegasus, where it's a cheaper flying character that can dot about and just be adding things where you need it, and as you say, nuking that character that now is much easier to take out, and you don't need your full sorcerer lord to go and do that away from your battle line. So there, whoa, boom, 2 ways of using that character. So shall we go on to how Chaos Dwarf players themselves are using or should be using magic items, in our opinion? In our opinion, of
course.
So if anyone does have their own opinion, don't forget to leave it below. This is obviously still, I think it's like 6 weeks that the Old World has been out, so it's still relatively new, and we won't have thought of everything, so it's worth you just leaving it below for anyone that might be reading this, or that might be up for reading it for more information. Chaos Dwarf magic items, weapons. Now this is where I'm usually underwhelmed, actually, because I compare everything to the Ogre Blade at 65 points. But let's see whether the Chaos Dwarves are doing that. So first one, the Black Hammer of Hashut, 60 points. You've got Strength +2, AP -1, Killing Blow, Flaming Attacks, Magical Attacks, Multiple Wounds, D3. Against models with the Flammable, that's where you get the Killing Blow, that's why it's in brackets.
Yeah.
I don't like this as much as the Ogre Blade.
It's the -1 AP, isn't it? It's the -1 AP.
Yeah. It is.
I still like it because it's got D3 wounds. So if one attack gets through, I've got a chance of actually killing something off straight away. Killing Blow I never rely on anyway. It's just one of those things that I never do. So, 60 points, yeah, I can see myself throwing this into a list.
Yeah, it's the trouble with me, I think, is that comparing it to an ensorcelled weapon that's already -1 AP, like that's just a neutral, that -1 AP. It's not a bonus. So what you're gaining off this is the +2 strength, but you've already got quite a low initiative across most of this list, so you're gonna go last anyway. A lot of the time I might as well just take a great weapon and have -2 AP, and I think that will come into it more against ogres. Yes, against
Yeah.
I know against Lords it will do those D3 wounds, but AP is so important on getting those wounds through. For that single to split into the triple, I'm the Ogre Blade is just still does it for me. And I don't think the Ogre Blade is overpowered. It's just I've not been wowed by any of the guys. Yeah. I think they're just slightly overcosted for what they are. Like I'd pay like 45 points for this maybe, but not anymore. Especially because it's say like on your Lord, getting flaming attacks, I'd say is more of a negative than having flaming attacks on many things in your army, because it's the enemy Lord that you want to take out that is more likely to have that good ward versus flaming attacks.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I can see this against a lot, and we don't have a lot of Wood Elf players in here, but against the Tree Men, if people are taking Sprite armies, it's very niche Forest Sprite armies, then this would be really, really good. But then that's tailoring lists, and we don't tailor lists at all. We just take the same list all the time.
When you mean in here, do you mean me and you?
I mean, in the community that we play in.
We do. We have Pete, Matt, and other Phil.
Pete, Matt, and other Phil.
Yeah. Phil with the brightly coloured pants that played me with Dwarfs last week on the channel on Saturday.
I did watch it. I need to beat him because there can be only one Phil.
Well, you both refer to as other Phil at the moment, so maybe you need to establish one way or the other who is Phil 1 and whether you are Phil 2. So, the Dark Maul, 50 points. It's strength user, AP -2, killing blow magical attacks. An enemy model that suffers one or more unsaved wounds from the Dark Maul must immediately make a strength test. If failed, you lose an additional wound. You strength 4 normally. For 50 points, I don't... Again, I never like any of these things that are like, make that model that usually has a better than average strength take a test, because, well, 2/3 of the time, even an elf lord is passing the strength test.
Yeah, it's 66.66. Recurring, obviously.
I said 2/3. That covers it, surely. But yeah, that also works against the killing blow. You sort of want a lot of attacks with the killing blow.
Yeah, which you don't tend to have here.
Yeah.
The -2 AP is nice, but the only thing I keep on thinking is Dark Forged Weapon, I've got the potential at 10 points to have that, just not with the killing blow and not with the strength test.
Yeah.
So I've got the potential of having exactly the same, 40 points less.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
And doesn't take up a magic item allowance either, so I've still got 100 points of magic items.
Yeah. Agreed. Dagger of Malice, 35 points. You gain... Basically, it's a basic hand weapon, but you gain Frenzy, Hatred all enemies, magical attacks. And you can't lose the Frenzy because it's just part of the dagger. Hatred is such a good special rule for just re-rolling all your misses. I really like this weapon. Is that stunned silence? Is that stunned silence?
As good as Hatred all enemies is, I hate Frenzy because your model tends to not be your own then, because you can be baited a lot. So I'm not a massive fan of Frenzy. I would have to play this multiple different ways. If a character's in a unit,
more than we've had time to do up to now.
Yeah. So if a character's in a unit, fine, because the unit's going with him. If you're putting this on a Sorcerer Lord,
I was thinking of it the opposite, you know. I'm thinking of it the opposite. Lamassu, or like whatever your Bale Taurus, the weaker Taurus version. You get your Dagger of Malice, put them together, and then you just bomb it into the centre, just outside of charge range of your opponent's army. And now you can pick what unit your frenzied dude goes into. So you don't care as much, you just bomb it into the weakest unit that you can fly into. Maybe bomb it into that artillery piece, on the hill, and you just sort of control your frenzy by just giving yourself so many targets that you can charge into that you don't care.
I mean,
On quite a mobile lord.
I mean, with the way that combat works now, because you can reform and stuff like that, frenzy isn't as bad because you can turn around and not get the charge arc on things and go after different things. So it's not as bad. I'm still probably tarnished a little bit from 6th edition. The one thing though, it's like hatred all enemies is great. But what happens if someone baits you with 2-up save Chaos Knights or Cold War Knights, Dragon Princes, you're bouncing, you're gone.
And that's why I think your character needs to be of the cheaper variety rather than like your full lord. I don't think you put your sorcerer prophet on a Lamassu and give him the dagger of malice. I think you do a cheap one that you try and not get caught out, but you're not going to get too upset. So long as they've nuked a couple of artillery pieces first.
Yeah.
I think it just ensures that.
Okay.
I don't think it's like a like, oh, this guy survives till the end. I think he runs about doing some stuff, some things and some stuff, and then, oh no, I've got caught out. Done.
Do you know one thing I really dislike about it?
Go on.
And this is really stupid. It's a dagger. And that is completely stupid.
Yeah, because he's striking down off the Lamassu with a blade that's like this big.
It's this big. It's as big as a kitchen utensil. That's what's stupid.
Have at you.
Have at you!
Yeah. Well, I'll just take that on board and let's go on to the Graven Scepter. 30 points, strength +1, magical attacks. When making a roll to wound, a roll of 4+ is always a success, regardless of the target's toughness. It's got no AP. Yes, a 4 up to wound.
Terrible.
Wounds.
It's terrible.
Yeah, agreed.
It's terrible.
Right, magic armors. Got the armor of Bazarak the Cruel. The Cruel. It's 50 points. It's basically full plate, immune psychology, -2 magic resistance. It's okay. I think it's overcosted. I think really, because yes, it's going to make you basically impregnable to spells. As a sort, say like you put this on your sorcerer lord. On a non-sorcerer, you should have enough sorcerers hanging around in this list to get lots of wizardly dispels. And I think immune to psychology, having it at a premium of 50 points, of that being the value of this suit of armour, on a leadership 9 and 10 for most of your important characters, I don't think it's worth it, personally.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, if you take this and put someone on Lamassu, it's -5 magic resistance.
Yeah, but why do you care past -3? I'm already a sorcerer that's dispelling.
I don't. I'm just saying, it's full plate seems to get a high price value against units. Against factions that don't naturally have full plate all the time. So this is really high for that. Immune psychology, it's good, but it's been watered down a lot in the old world, where it's only against panic. It's not against everything like it used to be. You know, you can't use it to subjugate stubborn or anything like that. Magic resistance -2. I mean, if you put it in if you have a big nasty unit, if you put a guy with this on it, anything that's cast against the unit gets -2. Okay,
it becomes impregnable, doesn't it? Like, really?
Yeah, but that's it though. They can't take anything else. Saying that though, if I have a battle standard bearer with this, okay, so they've got 4-up save, -2 magic resistance for the unit.
Yeah.
And with a dark forged weapon,
yeah,
it becomes almost a character that's got like 100 points worth of items on them. Almost, if I roll away on the dark forged weapon.
But that's that's just equating the value of those magic items to to being worthwhile. I still don't think it. Like, I'd prefer say it's the Mask of Furnace, 40 points. Improve your armor by 1. Gain a 3-up ward against flaming attacks. So look, it crops up this thing that we were talking about on characters. Do I think that's worth? I think it's a little bit expensive compared to other people's 3-up ward flaming attack things. Improving your armor by 1 is good, especially because most AP on weapons is like 2. You've got some things that are 3 and like some elven things that are better, but I'd even take that over the armor of Bazaret the Cruel, because you just get that really good ward save against, like, I'd bomb that character towards anything that's got flaming attacks and just be like, haha, I survive.
It's really your moustache, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's it's the perfect race to be doing the mustache twirl with. But maybe I misspoke. I don't. Do you know what? I think this is just not as bad as the armor of Bazaret the Cruel. I just don't think this is where you're spending your points on Chaos Dwarfs. Do you?
Okay.
Let's.
I agree.
Yeah. Right. Cool. Just rather than beating a dead horse. So the Mantle of Stone, 30 points. You get a +1 modifier to your toughness, -1 to your initiative, 30 points. Amazing.
Common magic item. Take it everywhere. Take it everywhere you can.
Yeah.
Like, literally take it. Everything should have this. The first magic item you start with on any character is this. And then you look at everything else.
Yeah, because your initiative is bad.
bad initiative anyway. Dwarf.
Yeah.
So what this does then is your Bale Taurus is now toughness 7.
Mm.
You know, I mean that's mental for 30 points.
Dragons wound you on 5s. Chaos Lords wound you on 4s.
Fours with a great weapon.
Yeah.
Like, that's mental.
Really
Take this
good.
on everything.
Yes.
Take this on everything.
Before we get into too hard of an agree, let's go on to the Hell Shard, 20 points. And I'm glazing over that because it won't make good listening for us to sort of like circle jerk over this item for 15 minutes.
We also are 5 miles away from each other at the moment, so that'd be really hard as well.
Across internet one. Hell Shard, 20 points. If the bearer of the Hell Shard loses its last wound to an enemy attack, the unit that made the attack suffers D6 strength type hits, AP -1. Not actually too bad. See this on unit champions more than anything else. For 20 points, It's within that 25 points allowance of most unit champions. And actually, to just like, oh, I've lost my wound. Like, my unit's been entirely wiped out in combat.
Oh no, he's died.
I know. Yeah, and yes, you have to actually be swept. So you have to actually lose it in combat, not be swept for this. But it's within that allowance, and I suppose you put it on a level 2 that's in a unit, and when they get targeted out because they're in the front rank. But I see it more on within that champion's allowance.
Do you know what I'd have liked to have had this as? A common magic item? And actually, I mean, we've just circled jerked a little bit over the Mantle of Stone. But I'd have liked to have had the Hell Shard as a common magic item and not the Mantle of Stone.
Mm.
Just that sort of like sacrificial champion thing. Because it would have been on every champion, wouldn't it? Let's be honest. But maybe that's why. But it's all right. 20 points, I think it's a good value. I don't think it's bad. I think it's really good.
Decent, I think, is the shout for that. Magic standards, you've got the Lamasu's Beard, 65 points. The unit carrying it has a 6-up ward against any wounds suffered and gains a magic resistance -2. In addition, whilst within 6 inches of this model, friendly units have a 5-up ward against wounds suffered during the shooting phase and magic resistance -1. I think this is really good as the premier standard of the army to combine so many effects and also be affecting other units in the army. I really like it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going stacking buffs, which is great in the old world. Yalamasu's now -4 magic resistance stood near this.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, as Max was saying before, it can bomb in front. As long as you're touching 6 inches, it's now impenetrable to a lot of things. 5 up natural ward. It's -4 magic resistance, so nothing's touching it magic wise. The unit as well that goes into this is really safe and secure. I think it can only go on a battle standard bearer, but really good. I think every time you take a battle standard bearer, you take this. I think that's for me is a rule of thumb.
It's pretty cut and dry. I think it's the best standard available to Chaos Dwarfs.
Yeah.
In most situations, obviously they might like the Razor standard might pop up at times and as like a better one in a very specific situation, but I think this one is just the one to default to for all of you like infantry blocks and things like that, because that's you'll take casualties on the way in, and this just prevents it.
Exactly.
Ashen Banner, 30 points. Any enemy model that targets a unit carrying the Ashen Banner during the shooting phase has a -1 to hit modifier.
Solid.
Really good. Really good.
Solid.
So, Lamasu's beard on the BSB.
Yeah.
Unit carrying the Ashen Banner.
Yeah.
Apple pen.
Immune to shooting. Basically, like, you can't hurt me.
I said apple pen, but is it Ashen Beard?
Ashen Beard.
Yeah, exactly. The Overseer's Sigil, 25 points. Whilst within 6 inches of a model carrying the Overseer's Sigil, friendly units lose the Levy's special rule. Now, this actually I think is very useful. It means that other units can benefit from your General's Inspiring Presence and your BSB reroll. So having this just thrown into a Chaos Dwarf unit that's got some levies nearby, that's going to be like, the levy's going to be near your battle, like the centre of your battle line, it can just keep that horde around with the Inspiring Presence and the BSB reroll a lot longer. Do you not like it?
No.
No?
No.
Why?
What's the other points of what are the other parts of the levy special rule?
That you don't take panic checks when they run away?
Exactly.
But why do I care? I'm a leadership 9 dwarf. That's within my 12 of my battle standard bearer.
You don't care about, right, so with the hobgoblins and stuff like that, I don't care if they run. Like, because the levies. So I don't get it.
I really like this one.
Hobgoblins, and we'll see that. They're 93 points for like 20. Yeah. I couldn't care if they run. They're just like stopping this.
But, so don't imagine 20 of them. Imagine... Right, let me put it this way. So my Yeoman Guard for my Bretonnian Exiles list in a unit of 50, how annoying have they been? Just being a massive block that gets to use the General's Inspiring Presence and BSB reroll because they're not levies. They're just super annoying and they don't go anywhere. And a leadership 10 general that allows them to use the Inspiring Presence, and he's just like, you guys stay there for 25 points. I think just throwing it onto like an Infernal Guard's or onto their standard, not the battle standard, but like just throwing it onto a unit's standard. They can be on the other side of the unit of levies, so they don't have to be near the general. It's just that unit within 9 loses the levy. So I think it's just so good for just anchoring a flank with a big horde of dudes that are do you know what? I really like this.
You're not going to convince me of this. I'll have to have...
You just love the Thomas the Tank Trains in this list. I really like the Overseer's Sigil. And okay. I would have it on a secondary unit. I wouldn't have it on like a central unit. I'd have it even on like like on a standard, on just a flanking unit that just happens to, you're going to want to keep it within 9 of your big horde of like on your big horde of like rubbish models that's just a wounds tub that will never move. Shroud of the Ancestor, 10 points. You gain Hatred Dwarf special rule. For 10 points, I would take this in every list and just be like, I fucking hate dwarves. Like, I think it's too specific to be like, to recommend it properly, but it's like elves and the Cloak of Beards that you can take. I'd just take it in every list. If I'm a Chaos Dwarf player, I just hate dwarves. I just hate dwarves of the mountain holds. Yeah. Definitely. Enchanted items, we get the Demonic Familiar for 30 points. Enemy models engaged in combat with the owner of the Demonic Familiar must reduce their armor value of any ward or regeneration saves by 1 to a minimum of 6. Very, very good, I would say. Because it
30 points. This is mega. This is like this is amazing.
Yeah, this is almost where you, if you go with the Sword of Randomness that you're going to get on your combat characters, this is, instead of having a magic weapon, you're getting these subsidiary items that are going to make your character better at taking out that enemy character anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, really like it. Recommend it. Breath of Hashut, 25 points. Single use, is a breath weapon. Strength 4, AP -2, which is really good. Breath weapon, flaming attacks, magical attacks. I really like this. 25 points. It's within, again, that unit champion's 25 points nurse. Phil doesn't like it. What?
Single use. I just don't like single use items.
Hobgoblin Khan runs up the side of a unit and just goes and just like flame breaths all over a unit.
Fine. A hobgoblin. You know, I keep on thinking my main characters are dwarves, not hobgoblins. So this would be really good on a hobgoblin Khan.
Yeah, this is on a giant wolf that's movement 9.
I wouldn't take it on a chaos dwarf.
Just run.
I wouldn't take it on a chaos dwarf.
Yeah, because he's he's not fast enough. I suppose on a Lamassu or something like, on a flying Taurus, he's like going to be fast enough. But other than that, no. To me, this wants to be like hobgoblin, just like breath everywhere. Obsidian Vembraces, 15 points. You gain +1 modifier to their strength characteristic and magic resistance -1. However, natural 1 when making it a hit roll. The gauntlets shatter and can no longer be used. It doesn't say shatter at the end of that turn, and I've not yet got to using my strength. So I think they're too likely to shatter before I get to use my strength value of +1.
15 points though. They're super cheap.
True.
Super cheap.
True.
Super cheap.
Well, this is like weighing it up into it. It's like, I agree with you. It's only 15 points.
It's only 15 points.
It's only 15 points.
It wouldn't be the first item I take, but it would be one that I put on to try and make my 100 points up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it'd be the filler, the last 15 points where I can't spend it anywhere.
It would be the filler item where I'm like, oh, I'm not really that mithered if it breaks. So, like, you know, if I'm taking a combat character and I've got my Ogre Blade and I'm not taking a ward save for whatever reason, all right, I'll stick this on there to try and fill those points up. What?
I'd take it with the Dagger of Malice on a cheap level 2 sorcerer, and that'd make my 50 points limit. I've only got 2 attacks anyway. They now gain Frenzy for 3 attacks and Hatred, so I can re-roll that 1. Obsidian Vembraces for +1 strength and my strength 5. Yeah. That's what I'd be doing. That's what I reckon, because you're re-rolling them ones, man.
Is that allowed? I don't know. I'm not going to do this here, right? Because it's a natural.
I'm not going to do this here. Well, we're going to come to fisticuffs off the. Well, you get to re-roll any fails, so you re-roll them, and then it's if I get any natural ones, that's the natural one I've rolled, because otherwise I get to re-roll it on the first roll.
I'll go with that.
That's what
Fine.
I think.
Them's the rules. Them's the rules.
Them's the rules. If someone knows any different, please give us a page number below, and I will reform my opinion. But that is what.
That sounds pretty tasty. That though.
Yeah. The 50 points limit. Sorcerer for short now becomes 3 attacks.
Done.
Yeah.
Oh, put him on a Lamassu. -4 magic resistance.
Exactly. And then you just bomb him into the centre. Oh, what? What's that? I'm now in charge range of your artillery pieces, and they're not going to run away if I charge them.
Yep. Done.
Yes.
Job done.
Arcane items. Now, we can actually do this in this section and not be wrong, because these apply to the Sorcerers of Hashut that are your main choices. The Demon Flask 50 points, single use. During the command phase of a turn, you may open it. If you do so, all enemy units within the command range must take a panic check. Fairly reasonable. Do you know what? I can't say one way or another whether this is good, is what I will say there. A panic check, meaning that if you're over 50%, you only fall back in good order. But it could get you that extra round of shooting, or it can let your train get away. It would be one of the last items I went to. It wouldn't be the first. But I can't say it's useless.
It's too expensive. It's too expensive. 50 points is too expensive.
But it could just make everyone run away, Phil. And we've all had those games where our entire army runs away.
I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? If something's under 50%, you bail, you save. I think there's things you can use in conjunction with this. I suppose, thinking about it, like if I was taking Demonology and had Gathering Darkness on multiple sorceresses.
Yeah.
Sorcerers. That's the right word. Sorcerers.
Yeah.
Then -2 to your leadership. Most things are going to be on leadership 7. I think that would then start seeing the worth here. Command range, if it's on a behemoth, that's 18 inches. So you start then.
You're thinking general here,
yeah. And I think that's the way I would take it for me. But it's a bit expensive. I would have to. It would be the right scenario where it all just works. I'm like, this is amazing, and then I'll do it another time. Everyone stands still. I'm like, this is rubbish.
Well, exactly. That's why I don't want to just shit on it for the 10 minutes. So next we've got the Vial of No Fun, otherwise known as the Vial of Lamassu Blood. 40 points, auto dispel a spell. It's like the old dispel scrolls. Because you can only use one in your army. They are very good. I hate this item. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, boo. Just auto dispelling anything. Especially when you've got level 4 sorcerers. For dwarfs, it's sort of like they're not the best actually at dispelling, because they've only.
But they don't need this. They don't need this.
Yeah. Moving on, but take it if you want it. It's too good. Scroll of Binding, 30 points, single use. When attempting to cast a spell, if they do so, the wizard rolls 3d6 rather than the usual 2. However, if a double 1 is rolled, the spell is miscast on any 2 of the dice. Very good for getting that one spell off on the turn that you really need it. At 30 points, it's a bit expensive, I think. Because it's single use. Think about how much the Dark Elf roll 3d6, pick the 2 highest is, and that's going off all the time.
That's 55 points. So I can see where you're coming from with this, by the way. That this is a bit too much being single use. With it being a common magic item, by the way, I would have liked it to be cheaper, but you could take multiples. Yeah,
but true. Because you can't get 2 on the level 2 sorcerer, even though it's common.
No.
But
if I could have got, if they were 25 or 20 points and I can get 2 in a level 2, and I'm like, that's fine, I'm happy with that, them's the rules.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that a lot.
Them's the rules.
But them's the rules. But with it being 30 points and I can't get 2, and it's a common magic item, I'm just like...
Yeah. Agreed. You summed up my thoughts well. Shall we go on to the Law of Hashut, since we're on Sorcerers? We've got the Curse of Hashut, which is a magic missile, casting value 9, 18-inch range. Basically, you target an enemy character regardless of usual restrictions. The character must make a toughness test. If passed, they take D3 strength 2 hits, AP dash. If failed, D3 plus 2 strength 5 hits, with no armour or regen saves permitted. It does an average number, because sorcerers tend to be low toughness. So 50-50. Normally they're toughness 3, so 50-50, they're going to fail that toughness. It then, with D3 plus 2, strength 5 hits, will kill that sorcerer, and if they pass, it'll maybe do a wound. So you're not auto-nuking a sorcerer character. Against normal characters, usually toughness 4, and I don't think it's good enough against that. If you're playing a sorcerer heavy army, it might be worth it, but it's not my favourite spell ever. It's situationally okay. Situationally good, ignoring them restrictions. But
I think the fact that you can pick this, by the way, you get to pick this.
Yeah.
So because you're saying it's situational, I think it's good because it's situational, but it wouldn't be one that I include all the time because it's so situational. It's not the first thing I would go to when we look at the other spells as well. I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take this all the time. But if I come across somebody who's like Empire, they've taken a lot of wizards, high elf, wood elf, dark elf. I'm thinking about the things that are just toughness 3 in general. I would go for that.
It's usually those wizards, isn't it? Like, if you're taking a lot of wizards, or your opponent's taking a lot of wizards, other than chaos, which are normally toughness 4.
Yeah, and I think if I was facing a lot of elf armies, possibly because it ignores the armor. Elves have, like, high elves and dark elves have really good armor. They have access to full plate and a shield, so they've got 3 up. So ignoring that straight away, yeah, possibly, but it's not something I would lean into straight away. It's not one I'd pick. Not when if I'm taking demonology, the summoning.
Oh, the summoning. Yeah, because you can just delete skirmishers with that.
Yeah.
Now, let's flip into an alternate universe where we're playing against a lot of sorcerers. This spell is really good because you target ignoring the usual restrictions, and 50% of the time you're just nuking a sorcerer. I think that's the sort of split-face, two-face personality of this spell. And as you say, when you're selecting it because it's a signature, it sort of fits the mould of that. It's take it as what it is, situational, as Phil said. Storm of Ash is a hex, casting value 10 on self. All enemy units suffer a -1 to hit when within 9 inch of the caster's model. Natural 6s are unaffected. I really like this. I think this is really, really good.
I mean, if we're looking at Curse of Hashut and then going Storm of Ash, I'm always taking Storm of Ash.
Unless in the alternate world, yeah.
Unless in the alternate world where you're coming up against 5 wizards. I really like this. I think this is great. I think it keeps that wizard secure all the time. You can combine it with the Banner of Bannerness. The Ashen Banner.
What does it do? -1 to hit shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah. What, to just make you bubble just a lot
-2 to hit shooting.
Yeah.
So -2 to hit shooting.
Because it's not specified within the combat phase, is what I think you're getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. So also, if you're charging in, the Ashen Banner doesn't work. It's only in the shooting phase.
Mm-hmm.
So this then works then because you're within the 9 inches when you're charging. So I kind of like the Storm of Ash. Solid hex. Yeah, all for it.
I agree. It just gives you that double protection, doesn't it, of -1, and then a
Yeah.
situational -1 against shooting. I think it's a lot better than Curse of Hashut in most situations, though, as like a defaulty one.
Yeah.
Flames of Hashut, Assailment, casting value 9, obviously range combat. Enemy unit the caster is engaged in combat with takes D3 +1 strength 4 hits, AP -1 with flaming attacks. Fairly marginal, I think, actually, compared to other assailments.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great, is it? But it does make your sorcerers more combat beefy because they've just got this, then their attacks, then their mount attacks. But yeah, I think it's just overshadowed for me a little bit by Storm of Ash, and then this is overshadowed again by Curse of Hashut.
Yeah, do you know what? It's funny that we've come to the end of the magic. The weapons we were fairly positive on, but the magic items and Lore of Hashut, there's some standout items. Lore of Hashut. Now I do actually think like Chaos Dwarves are one of the better armies overall, and I think that's just because of the combined role and the actual like the generic stuff that they get access to in sort of the dual role Sorcerer Lord, getting demonology as well as being fairly good in combat. They're fairly good overall, and then that adds up to a very solid list with no weaknesses.
I think it's this is the bells and whistles, isn't it? This is
Yeah.
I think the list is good or above good, and then these are the bells and whistles. So I'm not surprised that you feel a little bit lackluster with these. They are good. It's just I think the standard stuff is so much better and very much makes me feel very dwarfy in the way that it is. But we'll go over that, I guess, in the unit entries.
Right, let's go on to the main character entries because we've done Sorcerer Lords and Sorcerers. So we get to the Infernal Guard Commanders. Now these are the non-sorcerer, like mooks. And they are better in combat than your Sorcerer Lord, 125 points, weapon skill 6, strength 5, toughness 5 now, 3 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 10. And then the Infernal Seneschal, rather than the Castellan, is weapon skill 5, strength 4, toughness 5, 2 wounds, 3 attacks, leadership 9 for 60 points, which is a steal. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, hand weapon, heavy armor. You've got black shard armor, so you've got a ward save versus flaming, ensorcelled weapons, so the -1 on your hand weapon. Rallying cry, rerolling regrouping tests when within the command range, which is high because you're dwarves. Resolute and stubborn as standard. I really like them. These, do you know, like we've started with the Sorcerer Lord because it's the first one that came in the list. Your combat character is here and also fairly cheap. Like at strength 5, toughness 5, and yes, against a Chaos Lord you're lacking a wound and an attack, and I suppose a weapon skill, but really for 125 points I think it's an absolute steal.
I think the Infernal Seneschal is where it's really at, by the way. Yeah, you drop in a weapon skill, strength, wound, and attack. An initiative, but I don't care because the dwarves, because they're initiative 3 or rubbish. The initiative dwarf. But for 60 points, you can have these dotted around all your units, and you've just got something that's a little bit better than a champion.
Yeah, well, I think actually for me, the points when you said you can just have them dotted around, I'm thinking that of a fair few. You sort of spoiled for choice in the sort of like hero level of the Chaos Dwarfs. You sorcerers are also engineers, and they're not terrible in combat because they're chaos. Your Infernal Seneschals are better than that in combat. it's just a very solid character selection on the dwarf side of it, at least.
Yeah. To think you could take 9 of these in a 2,000 point list.
What, just like you just thinking very minimally take 9 of them.
Yeah, 9. 9 of all Dart Forged and all the shield. Just 9 of them across your army.
Yeah, so that is one thing. You got shield but no access to full plate. Weird because they're the ones making chaos armor.
I thought that, to be fair.
Yeah, so I would have thought they'd have access to full plate, but they don't. Great weapon, I think, is a good choice. Is a great choice for 4 points.
Great weapons are great.
Yeah, Dark Forged. Do you know what? I'm always someone that goes with the more like sort of reliable option. So I personally gravitate towards the great weapon, but the Dark Forged weapon for 10 points is also very good if you roll that 2 and get hatred, get just magic resistance, or just any of those results in main are really good. I can't say a bad word about it, really. I don't think you need too many upgrades. Obviously, the Castellan, Ogre Blade, Talisman of Protection. Done.
Chaos Dwarf Sandwich.
Yes, exactly. I like the inclusion of the Fire Glaive for 10 points because you could, as I said, you can just stand and shoot and potentially gain additional combat res. Yeah, and it's what is there to say on it?
Solid.
What is there to say except they're solid on this film?
They are cheap and solid. They're really good. They're not going to be as mental as a Dwarf Lord, as like toughness 10 or on shield bearers or any of that, but they are solid for the points. Really, really good options. Really good options.
Yeah, agreed. So Bull Centaur, Taurok. You got movement 7, weapon skill 5, strength toughness 5, 4 wounds, initiative 4, 4 attacks, leadership 9. So a really good leadership. You've got monstrous cavalry, hand weapon, heavy armor. You've got ensorcelled weapons, so your hand weapons at -1 AP. You've got armored hide 1 to go along with your heavy armor, so you're starting off on a 4-up. You can take a shield along with either your dark forged weapon or hand weapon, which just as a cheap loadout of these, a shield, a dark forged weapon is coming in at 158 points, and at that you're going to have a 3-up save, armor bane 1 and -1 for the ensorcelled weapon. You potentially hatred on the dark forged weapon. You've got fear first charged, impact hits D3 + 1 at strength 5. Loner, which will then allow you to join Bull Centaur units.
Yep.
Stampede, Stubborn.
-2 to your impact hits when you charge. Stubborn, Swift Stride. Right. Do you know when we were talking about the van braces before?
Yeah.
Dark Forged weapon, shield, van braces.
Well, I suppose, yeah, because you've got +1 strength, haven't you? And that goes with your impact hits before, and you won't roll to hit with that.
No.
Yeah.
So your strength 6, -1 magic resistant. You've got a potential -2 AP on your strength 6 weapon. Going at initiative 4 with a 3-up save, with a 5-up against anything that's flaming. This, armor bane as well, so you can end up with -3.
Yeah.
This is an amazing character.
Yes.
Every Centaur unit, I think, should have one of these in it. If you're taking Centaurs, you should have one of these in there.
Yeah, and
extra grunt.
Dragon Ogres in the normal Chaos list are great, and I think this is a better, at least single dragon, not obviously a Shaggoth, but it can go within the unit and boost that unit's operation. And I think Swift Stride is such an important rule to have here that Dragon Ogres lack.
Yeah.
I really, really like this as a character choice.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. Right. Onwards. And also the Great Weapon Strength 7. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. just
Or
to throw
strength
that
8
in there.
if you take the van braces.
Yeah.
Or strength 8 if you take the van braces.
All that. Hobgoblin and -2 AP. Hobgoblin Khan, 45 points. We get to the very much cheaper end of this. You've got 2 wounds, weapon skill 5, strength toughness 4, initiative 5, 3 attacks, leadership 7. You've got levies and warbands, so that with your rank bonus will take it in a normal Hobgoblin unit up to leadership 10. In a Wolf Rider unit, we'll take it up to leadership 9. Because as I'm remembering, I'm just going to go through. Wolf Riders have hard, don't they? No. So we'll take you to leadership 8 in Wolf Riders. They've got additional hand weapons, great weapons, cavalry spears. May replace throwing weapons with short bows for 2 points. Can take shields and light armor. A giant wolf for 10 points. And obviously have levies. And they've got backstab. So backstab, let's go back to the special rules section, all the way at the start. If a unit with a special rule is engaged with an enemy unit's flank or rear, you can re-roll failed rolls to hit made against the enemy unit. Incredibly good rule. Like, hatred when in flank or rear, and you can have a giant wolf for being movement 9. And fast cavalry and swift stride is obviously tailored to suit, but they're cheap enough that I would say you pretty much want one in every Hobgoblin unit you're going to take.
Yeah. I think just as like saying that the Toruk, if you're taking Bull Centaurs, put that in there. If you're taking Hobgoblins en masse, like Max was saying before, like 30, 40 of them, because that's what he's doing with his peasants. Put one of these in there. Amazing character, really good. 45 points. I mean, putting him on a wolf is 55 points before we've given any upgrades. And we've got evasive on here as well, so they can actually move away from shooting at them.
Yeah.
And also fire and flee if they're on the wolf. It's a very, very good unit for what tops out at less than 70 points.
Yeah, agree. Because I wouldn't be giving many, other than the vial of flamey breath. Like, I wouldn't be giving them many magic items. Yeah, the breath of Hashut.
No,
I wouldn't be giving them many magic items. Keep them cheap. Give it like a cavalry spear makes them strength 5.
Yeah,
like that's worthwhile for 2 points.
And initiative 8 when they charge, if they charge over 3 inches. So for me here, if you're in Wolf Riders, spear, shield, light armor, bow. So what does that come to? So that's 2, 4, 3, so that's 7, so that 52 points, 62 points for that.
Yeah, and adding that weapon skill 5.
Weapon skill 5, 3 attacks, toughness 4, really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Agreed.
That's me.
Right, so the final characters within the character section are actually a lone unit from the Orcs and Goblins book. So we've got Black Orc bosses, and you can take either of these because it just says Black Orc boss within the character section, right, Phil?
Yeah.
I'm reliably informed.
And that's the unit entry in the Orcs and Goblin tribes army selection.
Yes. So, what to say about Black Orc bosses that won't just be covered in the Orcs and Goblins list? Well, it will definitely be retread. Black Orc bosses are really fucking good. At 135 points, you get essentially the best character available to Orcs and Goblins. That's weapon skill 7, strength toughness 5. So he's a Chaos Lord level of weapon skill, strength and toughness. Wounds 3, initiative 6, 4 attacks, leadership 9. So yes, you drop a weapon. Yes, you drop a wound, an attack over a Chaos Lord. But my God, they are good in combat. for 135 points, they are cheap as chips. Choppers adds to your any weapon. It's not just hand weapons. So they've got full plate, a great weapon, they're better AP than anyone else with a great weapon. You can keep him cheap, or you can tool them up, but like give him an ogre blade, give him a talisman of protection. They're really good in combat, but when you're in the Chaos Dwarfs list, if you like, surely you don't want to play Black Orcs because otherwise you're playing an Orc army. Yeah. Well, this is Phil has been floating lists about, and there's been a couple. And sorry, Phil, I'm going to out you here. Where Phil has sent us and been like, "What do you think of this?" And it's like, "Oh, it's really heavy on the Black Orcs because they're really good." But you wanted to play Chaos Dwarfs, so our replies were like, "Get more Chaos Dwarves in there."
Yeah.
Because
stop taking Black Orcs, you more. Go and play Orcs and Goblins if you want to do that.
Yeah.
I get it from the fluff perspective, and there's a couple of things. Right, so I did write a list with like Black Orc, War Boss, and a unit of Black Orcs. But there's a couple of things. And Max is right, and I re-looked at myself, and I hard look in the mirror and go, "Come on, Phil. You know, you're taking Chaos Dwarves. You're not taking Orcs."
So that is the Black Orcs, and I think actually getting into the Black Orcs next, maybe, even though it's out of order, let's do Black Orcs next while we're on the lone units of Black Orcs. Now, for 12 points a model, movement 4, weapon skill 4, strength toughness 4, Space Marines, you've got 1 wound, initiative 3, 1 attack, leadership 8. You've got full plate, hand weapons, but with the choppers rule, you've got close order, Du Bois, furious charge, ignore panic, motley crew, quell imposity. Shields makes you a 3-up save. I think Black Orcs are incredibly good.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I think that Black Orcs are one of the best infantry units in the game.
I would agree with you.
It's just, I just think they're so good. For 12 points, most other armies are paying 15, 16 points for what you get with a 12-point Black Orc. Yeah, the movement 4, but they can be 3-up save, which is the same as most people's cavalry.
Yeah, well, it's like Chaos Warriors, like say, I think 17 points a model and don't have full plate. Just a really, really solid unit, and will do you well taking them in the Chaos Dwarf army. Just pretend they have their 4-up save from somewhere else, because why do the Chaos Dwarfs not have the best armor in the list? Yeah. So let's go on to Infernal. Let's do the Infernal Guard first, because they're the core choice, and then we'll go on to Infernal Iron Sworn after and do a bit of a comparison between the two. And actually, I suppose we can do them between the Black Orcs as well. So for 11 points, you get weapon skill 4, strength toughness 4, 1 wound, initiative 2, 1 attack, leadership 9, so 1 better than the Black Orcs that we've just covered. But you've got 1 less initiative than the Black Orcs we've just covered for 11 points. You've got heavy armour and hand weapon. You've got detachment and regimental unit, which will be useful for getting flank charges. If you have a detachment, detachments have to be half the size and can't include command elements of their regimental unit. And the detachments basically can perform either a counter charge after opponents' charges have been made, or stand and shoot if they've got anything to stand and shoot with, which Fireglaves can do on Infernal Guard. So a really useful sort of multi-purpose unit. Especially if you've got a really big unit of Infernal Guard, and then you've got hail shot blunderbusses, as I see Phil's head nodding away, or even the other way round, a really big unit of Infernal Guard with blunderbusses that then allows counter charges from flanking shield and hand weapon units of Infernal Guard. It's just a really solid unit for 11 points a model, I think.
I love this unit. I mean, I would look at Fireglaves because then you've got the option. If you can't stand and shoot because they're within their movement range, you can just charge and you're strength 5 minus 1 AP with the Fireglaves.
Mm.
And you're also adding in close order for the extra +1. So if you've got these tagged up with Infernal Guard, you've got +2 from close order from your combat rest straight away.
Yes. Do you mean strength 5 in combat rather than strength 5 from shooting?
Yeah, strength 5 in combat, sorry. Strength 5 in combat. If you tag them up with the Infernal Ironsworn, you've got 2 close order amounts, so they stack. You've got +2 combat res straight away. I really like these. I think it's nice they're a detachment as well. If you've got your choices. Either take them as a big blob, take blunderbusses, take drilled, so you can run them up the board, and then you're able to do that. You can reform them, so that's where you reform into your 15 long lines, so you can get 20 shots, or have them just as 10 at the side of your Ironsworn, and you've got Fireglaves there as well, so you've got a multi-purpose unit. Great weapons are great, but this is probably the only time I would not take great weapons, and I wouldn't look at them.
What, because of the Fireglaves?
Because of the Fireglaves. I would just spend the 2 extra points and get the Fireglaive, because then I've got a unit that can do 2 things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good shout. The main downside of Quarrelers and Thunderers in the Dwarf list versus Warriors, and I had this discussion with Ian on the Dwarf thing, and that they're weapon skill 3. But having the weapon skill 4 on your shooting unit, that's also, like, the regimental unit is massive for just having a little unit that can flank charge, and then you're just a dwarf warrior that's just as good as a dwarf warrior with a shield and a hand weapon and heavy armor that can just be in combat. Is just really, really good. Having drilled on that 1 per 1,000 points, and then having drilled on your regimental unit to keep up with you, because in a 2,000 points game, 2 of them, I just think it's so useful in so many situations. I really like them. Now, comparing them against the Black Orcs, yes, you don't have that full plate, but because you've got the strength 4 that dwarves don't have until you get to Longbeards, and the toughness 4, I think there's a good shout for them and their inclusion in the list, because it's just solid across the board. It's like everyone else's elite infantry unit.
Yep.
So shall we go on to the elite infantry unit?
Yeah, the one that you're going to be tagging up with him.
So the Infernal Ironsworn, 19 points a model, so 8 points more a model. These are essentially the chosen versions of your Infernal Guard. Weapon skill 5, strength toughness 4, 1 wound, 2 attacks, leadership 9. And then the Overseer is 3 attacks and leadership 9. That's plus 7 points. These have got full plate, so Black Orc level.
Yep.
They've got great weapons, or they can be upgraded for great weapons, halberds. The entire unit can take shields. I'd definitely take shields, right?
Yeah.
Full command is 21 points, and a magic standard up to 100 points, so that you could actually put the Lamasu's Beard on here and free up your Overseer standard to be on a floating BSB that can have it to jump around to near your levies. You can have, the Overseer can have up to 25 points of magic items. You've got Black Shard armor as standard, close order, drilled, ensorcelled weapons, so the -1 on the hand weapons. You've got Quell Panic, regimental unit, resolute, shield wall, stubborn, and veteran. And do you know what? I skipped over the stubborn and shield wall on the guard, but stubborn and shield wall, and it goes for both units, is such a brilliant combination. It makes even small units of either really, really good for just being like, I know I'm going to lose a turn of combat, but you're just going to be held up by 100 points worth of guard or 200 points worth of Ironsworn. I'm just going to give ground, and then I'm going to chop you next turn.
But this is the thing. Like, think of it. If you take a cavalry who's got spears, I'm just going to give ground. So they've got a choice of either following up, now they're on hand weapons, or they don't. And if it's your turn next, you can charge. You can get the +2 to your initiative because you'll be at least 2 inches away to your initiative force. So you're striking at the same time with halberds or your hand weapons. I think that's a really, really good. And you just get to choose to do that all the time. It's like, well, not all the time, but you get to choose when to do it. And stubborn happens when you fail. But yeah, I think it's really, really good. Really good.
Now, either of these units, upgrading to great weapons, I think, is worth a look in. But the fact that you've got ensorcelled weapons on the Iron Swan, I don't think it's as necessary to just have the option. Because at strength 4, you're wounding most other like basic things on 4s anyway. And with the -1 AP. And the stubborn shield wall going off a load, like, just such a useful rule. You've got to use your shields with it. Do you know what? I usually do comparisons in these, like, sort of, do you know, like, which one would you take? Where would you take it? I'd definitely be taking a unit of each in the army. It's not an either-or sort of thing.
So for me, it's big blobs of Iron Sworn with a detachment of Infernal Guard. And then a big... But I would put them on blunderbusses. And so I can then manipulate it with their 2 that are drilled that are the detachments, so I can get a lot of shots off them. And then I would take, as my 25% core, look at Phillips. I've spent quite a lot of points there, and I think we're going to move on to them in a second, is my Hobgoblin Cutthroats to make up those points as more ablative wounds and bodies within the army. I hope we're doing Hobgoblin Cutthroats, because I've just mentioned it.
Yeah, of course. Well, let's do Hobgoblins next then, and then we'll go back on to the Fireborn. So we've got the Cutthroats at 3 points a model, weapon skill, ballistic skill 3, strength toughness 3, initiative 3, fairly human stats, 1 attack, leadership 4, which is why you want the Hobgoblin boss. Oh, not the Hobgoblin boss. What's his actual title?
He's a Khan. He's a Khan.
Well, Beiji has something to say about that, but yeah, at leadership 4, this is why you want the Khan, because it takes his leadership up to 7. And they're already so cheap anyway for 3 points. You get unit size 10 plus, so it's 30 points for 10. Hand weapon shields as standard. And take light armour for 1 point a model. I don't know whether I'd add 25% to the cost of the model for just like for a 5-up save over a 6. Normally I'd be like, yeah, take the armour. But for 3 points a model, for 100 points, I can get 30 of them. Or that's 90 points. I can get full command for 107 with 30. With a Hobgoblin Khan is like 150 points for 30. And this is why I really like the Overseer's standard. Because that you can just make not go anywhere, because Horde means that they can get 3 rank bonus, and Warband means that they can add their rank bonus to their leadership, and that means they can get to leadership 10 with a Hobgoblin Khan. And then
that's the thing though. If I'm taking Hobgoblin Khans in this unit, I wouldn't take the Overseer one, because it doesn't matter if they've got levies, because they've got leadership 10 anyway.
It's the BSB reroll, and when someone kills you Khan, or if they use first charge and take your leadership down to 7, having that reroll, because when someone uses first charge, it strips you of the leadership bonus from the your ranks from the Warband. I think it's worth it just investing that 25 points. You just have it on a random Infernal Guard unit that's going to be nearby you Cutthroats. And it's just 25 points. Don't you go anywhere, that block.
Yeah. No, I can see the worth now a little bit more.
When it's put into the terms of like, it's 150 points for 30 of them that never go anywhere.
Yeah. Cutthroats, amazing. they get, they've still got backstab.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got hatred if they go in the flank or the rear. Really good unit, I think, for this.
Yeah.
30. Like, they should be taking just in blobs of 30.
Minimum. Yeah.
30.
If you take 60, I wouldn't call you a fool.
No.
Like, honestly.
No, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't.
Because
shields are short.
60 is like 240 points or something like that, including the Khan.
Yeah. What would you take? Would you swap your shields with short bows?
For free, yeah.
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 Because even though it's 16-inch range, and yes, you're firing half behind the front rank, but shields for a 6-up save, even with light armor, like for every 3 that has light armor, I can get an extra dude.
Yeah.
And it's
I'm with you. I'm with you. I would just take short bows, 30, massive mob. Yeah, well with it. Now, I would have a load of unit fillers because I'm not painting 30 hobgoblins. But but yeah, really good. Really good.
Now, sneaky gits for 6 points, or double the amount of points. You get weapon skill and ballistic skill 4, strength toughness 3, initiative 4, 1 attack, leadership 5, 2 attacks on the champion, same ballistic skill. You get 2 hand weapons and throwing weapons, and you've got skirmishers, ambushers, backstab, evasive, levies, and move through cover. I think for 60 points, an ambushing unit. Normally, I hate ambushing because it just never comes on, right? It just has the potential to just not come on. For 60 points, I think a unit of 10, or even just like skirmishing around your lines with that move through cover to protect from wizards going into like cover that you can never root out, I just really like.
I like these because these are really cheap for artillery hunting.
Yeah.
The weapon skill 4 makes them really good at doing that. So you're going to get a lot of attacks from them because you're hitting most things on 3s, not 4s.
Yeah,
and
most
even
crews,
elves, even against elves, they're hitting them against 4s. Ambushes, I'm with you. I don't like ambushes as a rule, but for these, because they're toughness 3, they've not the leadership 5. Using ambushes where they can come on turn 2, so they're not going to get shot to ribbons. Really good. 60 points, 2 units of them. I'm now just protecting myself in turn 3 going forward from artillery. Because if they come on turn 2, that's a turn that artillery piece can't ignore them. It can't ignore them. It's going to have to go after them.
Yeah. Would you upgrade with light armor?
Absolutely not.
No, agreed.
Absolutely not.
a 6-up save is just, in my mind, just not worth it at all. And that comes to anything.
It's not
Ward,
a save.
regen.
It's not a save.
I suppose regen when you've got it on skeletons, maybe, but yeah, it's just not worth it. Right. Next, let us go on to Wolf Riders. 12 points a model, movement 9. Don't need to say any more. Love them. The only thing I don't love is the slot that they're in.
And the fact you have to take a hobgoblin card to take them.
See, I don't see the Khan as too bad. I think he's worthwhile enough at the weapon skill 5, strength 5 on the charge with the cavalry spear.
I just think that you've got to no, you don't have to put it in the unit. You just have to take one. So you've just got to realise that these have got a 45% tax, a 45-point tax.
And
for me, I just don't like that.
You see, I really like it because it's one of the things that is lacking in the main dwarf list is the fast cav. Like, yes, they've got the gyrocopters, and gyrocopters are amazing, but they're not the throwaway units that fast cav tend to be. And I think it fills a really good role in a dwarf, like solid blocks of infantry, artillery train, army. And it's like a lot of these things that we're going through, like the hobgoblin cutthroats and things like that, are filling those roles that dwarves really lack in. And Wolf Riders being movement 9, swift stride. They've got evasive. They're fast cav, so can turn at the end of their move, at the end of their double move when in open order. Fire and flee. They're skirmishers.
Just wait, just wait. They can't fire and flee until you put a 1-point upgrade on them.
No, they can't feign flight until you.
Well, they can't fire and flee because they don't have a shooting weapon.
Oh, right. Splitting hairs there, Phil. Splitting hairs. Yes, I would give them short bows. Yes, I would give them short bows.
That's all I want you to say. I don't dislike the unit. I think it's really good. The boss, I think he's one of the mandatory upgrades here for 8 points because he's getting that ballistic skill 4. I'm always a fan of champion upgrades where it's like giving you an extra bonus to the thing they're designed to do. So ballistic skill 4, definitely. Even with the 2 attacks, yeah, they'll just get cavalry spears. They'd never have for free. And they would get short bows for a point because it's not one or the other; it's any.
Yeah.
So technically, to me, these are 13 points per model.
Yeah. It's now the main choice is really feign flight, reserve move. I'd actually take both of them. So go to 16 points a model. Feign flight so that it's just I don't have to make a test after fleeing from a charge. I just regroup. It just brings that unit back, and for 2 points a model, I definitely think it's worth it. Reserve move is so useful, especially in an army with strong shooting, which the Chaos Dwarf army is. It means that you can do a single move in your movement phase, you can destroy an enemy unit, and then move through the gap that has been created with your reserve move, because the reserve move happens at the end of the shooting phase. I think it plays into them really, really nicely with that movement 9. And the backstab plays off their speed really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% brilliant unit, I would say. Bull Centaur Renders. So movement 7, weapon skill 4, strength 4, toughness 5. Toughness 5, Phil. 3 attacks, initiative 3. Sorry, 3 wounds.
3
initiative
wounds.
3.
Initiative
2 attacks.
3. 2 attacks.
Leadership 8. On the champion, you've got an additional attack. They're 56 points, Dragon Ogre level of cost. They've got Armoured Hide 1, light armour. They can take shields for 3 points a model, or great weapons for 4 points a model. But I think these are absolutely brilliant. Right. What quick rundown of all the special rules? Because I've sort of glossed over them.
No. We don't need. We've been through all the special rules for these. I'm just interested to hear how you would arm these.
Right, 2 attacks each, and the impact hits D3. You can only take one of. I'd take great weapons. I would take great weapons. Because what I want these smashing into is like other hard units. I think they've got 2 attacks is good. Impact hits D3 plays into that. Especially with the Stampede being -2 AP. You want to be smashing into hard units, and I think I need that AP -2, even with ensorcelled weapons. But if it comes down to needing the initiative, I can just use my ensorcelled weapons, hand weapons, because it doesn't replace my hand weapon to take the great weapon, and then I've got the choice. Go on. Why am I wrong?
No. I would just take shields because I think that with the impact hits, I would be able to get enough impact hits and whittle down the front line not to need the great weapon.
Maybe, and I suppose with the light armoured hide 1, you're on a 4-up, so you're in like a medium cav level of armour. But I think the 3 wounds. Oh, it's hard.
See, that's where that's why I was interested to hear what you were saying, because I would usually take great weapons because great weapons are great, but I would lean into shields with these because I want them to get there to do the impact hits, not there to do the damage with the weapon. Yes, they're strength 6, but with Swift Stride, which is something that Dragon Ogres don't have, these are getting into combat more reliably and are going to be able to get those impact hits. So I would take shields, and that's where I was really interested to hear what you'd say, to be fair.
I don't think there's a wrong choice for them. Like, do you know, like when you put it like that, with the impact hits doing the AP -2 and smashing so many on the impact hits, I don't think there's a wrong choice. I would give them a full command for 18 points. Like, this is... I wouldn't use them in as smaller units as I think you see Dragon Ogres used. Like, on a 50 by 75mm base, yes, it's same as Dragon Ogres, but I think you want in units of 4 min.
Yeah.
Like, minimum.
I wouldn't go for a second rank. Units of 4, and that's where I would just go with that, because you're probably going to get your 4 causing impact hits as well because of how wide people go with their units now to get those more attacks. So I think 4, you're all right. Any wider, because the 50mm, I think you're going to be a little bit wasted.
But people tend to go 7 wide, don't they? And at 7 wide, that's 175mm wide for 25mm bases, 210 wide for 30s. So you might potentially get a 5th in when you... I suppose you could go 5 wide and get a corner to corner and then 200mm of Bull Centaur. So 5, I think, would still work if you align nicely. Right. Well, yeah, 4 or 5 wide, I wouldn't take a second rank. I wouldn't take a second rank. And I don't think there's a... Take the full command. Don't think there's a wrong way to go on the Great Weapons Shields debate. So next, we'll finish off with the Cav Fireborn. These are a unit of 3 or more, 41 points each, movement 6, weapon skill 4, strength 5, toughness 4, 2 wounds, initiative 4, 3 attacks, leadership 7. And the champion has leadership 8 and 4 attacks.
Unbreakable, unstable, and warp spawned.
And these have got blazing body as well. Blazing hot. A blazing body does, at the start of a combat phase, any model that's in contact with a unit suffers a strength 3 hit with AP dash and flaming attacks, the same as the Taurus. Unbreakable just immediately makes it a very good unit. Unstable means that you're gonna want to be a little careful for units with a load of static combat res.
Yeah.
But with 3 attacks and a fairly good initiative each, I think they're a solid unit for just holding up flanks and things like that. Like regen 5 will keep them around. In Sorcered Weapons, even a -1 is... I know Spirit Hosts have Ethereal going for them, but it's that's how I would be thinking of this unit.
So these can hold up a unit and whittle down a unit at the same time. And I think that's the good thing. Like, so I think we were working this out the other day, and I think that some of my armies, the best static combat res they can get is 6.
Yeah.
That's the best they can get. So with your 3 attacks on these and a 40mm base, if you're running them 4 wide, possibly 5 wide as well at this moment in time, you're probably going to get 6 attacks. Also, you've got that cheeky little one that you can do at the beginning of the combat phase, which counts the combat res as well.
Yeah.
These are going to be great at charging forward and letting the other units catch up to then get into the position to then come on the flank to then get rid of them. I mean, if you had these holding something up and then Hobgoblin Wolf Riders, get rid of the ranks, They're initiative 4, so they're going probably at the same time as the unit they're fighting, or probably beforehand.
Yeah.
They can then just dissolve a unit or straight away just because they've got that strength 5 as well, wounding most things on 3s or 2s.
So even if you
Really
think of
good.
him in this way, Phil, at 41 points a model, the 3 of them is 120 points. Now, 6 Bretonnian Yeoman Cav or 6 Marauder Horsemen is 110 points with a champion musician and stuff. So 3 of them with 9 attacks instead of the 7 attacks of those 2 fast cav units. Like, you can go on the flank, not be spending too many points more than a fast cav unit, and reliably be wiping it out.
Yeah.
And then if you come in against anything harder, you've got enough attacks to mitigate a bunch of combat res, and then not take too many wounds from the unstable. Yeah, and the ensorcelled weapons is such a good topper for the -1 AP.
Yep.
Like, it's as good. Like, it's as good as most armies' elite infantry. It's really, really good, I think, as a unit.
Love them. I'd hate painting them.
Love them.
I love that.
Right. So now let's go on to the Iron Demon. Right. So the Iron Demon, I'm going to let Phil have a little wax lyrical at this one. Go on, Phil.
So this is your Chaos version of Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yeah, exactly.
Movement 5, Strength 8, Toughness 7, 7 wounds. So that's you're wounding against that toughness profile, and it uses that strength for its impact hits because it is a heavy chariot. It's got 3 crew, so they're weapon skill 4, ballistic skill 4, strength 3, initiative 2, 1 attack. It's 275 points, so it's pretty pricey as it gets for a artillery piece. But it has a plethora, and I love that word, plethora of special rules. Carriage hauler, close order, fear, grinding wheels, immune to psychology, impact takes d6 plus 1, large target, lumbering destruction, stomp attacks d3 plus 1, unbreakable. So let's just go into some of the special rules for that first. So
let's unpack it. Let us unpack it.
Let's unpack those special rules. And going forward, we'll tell you why you should be taking these. So carriage hauler. During the movement phase, up to 2 friendly war machines with the steam carriage upgrade that are complete within the model's rear arc and within 8 inches of its base at the beginning of the phase can be moved when this model moves. These war machines must finish their movement completely within the model's rear arc and 8 inches of its base, unless this model moves using the lumbering destruction special rule or makes a charge move. These war machines are not considered to have moved this turn. Right. So what does that actually mean? It means basically you can carriage your other artillery war machines with it. So you can move them further up. So you can put them behind terrain and then you can move them out of the terrain after your first turn. You can get them into better firing positions. As long as they're within the rear arc, that doesn't mean directly behind them. They just have to be within the rear arc. So you've got a lot of options of where you can move your artillery pieces to get those better shots.
Do you know what I would have liked to see on this? It is a really good rule. I would have liked to see within 8 of the Iron Demon or another artillery piece benefiting from this special rule.
Yes.
So that you could properly have a carriage.
Trade.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So as long as you've got them from behind, if you've got them 8 behind, you can move a maximum of 11 inches with this thing, and we'll go into that in a minute. But as long as they're within 8 behind it and they can move that there, brilliant rule. I think it's fantastic. So the next one they've got is grinding wheels. Its stomp attacks are -2, but can't do it against a behemoth. Okay, don't put it in a behemoth. And all linear obstacles it treats as open terrain, so it can just go. It just marches through.
It can go over walls, which chariots can't.
Yeah, basically, just smashes through walls. Again, great. Next one, because there's a lot. Lumbering destruction. when you're moving it, you roll a d6, and you add that to each movement if you want. But if you roll a 1, it takes a wound.
And completely stops for the turn.
And stops completely.
Yeah. And it can't march. That's it instead of marching. It does this instead.
And it doesn't move the remainder of that turn. So it's not immobile, it's just immobile for that turn. So not massive negative to it. It's still pretty good.
Should we go to the Hellbound rule?
Hellbound, yeah.
So Hellbound, a model which is Hellbound, has a 6-up ward against any wounds suffered caused by non-magical attacks. It gains both fear and magical attack special rules, like in addition to that. If the model already has fear, it gains terror. In addition, once per game, may re-roll 1 scatter dice or artillery dice. However, should a Hellbound model ever roll a misfire, or should it ever roll on the misfire table, it suffers -1 to the result.
So imagine that with your engine seer rule now. So they can choose to roll an artillery dice or a scatter die. So this thing gets to choose that as well. So you go, oh, I've rolled a misfire. I'm really low for my hits for its weapon, its steam cannonade. Right, well, I'll roll the artillery dice with one. I'll roll the scatter with the other and see what you get.
Do you need to ever roll the scatter? Because your steam cannonade is essentially an organ gun.
So yeah, you won't
scatter with it. But like either way, it means that you just don't need babysitting with that infernal engineer, and the infernal engineer can be babysitting the artillery train that you've got behind
it. Yeah, no, you won't need to roll that one. Sorry, I got it right. Because I'm always used to rolling both. I always imagine you're rolling both.
Yeah, fair. Phil's used a lot of trebuchets in his time.
Yeah, so you just roll 2 artillery dice, so it can just re-roll one of those artillery dice there. So really good. Should we go into the weapon it actually has?
Yes.
So the steam cannonade, 18 inches, strength 5, -1 AP, armor bane, cannonade, and cumbersome. Said cumbersome there, Max. I hope you're happy. Cumbersome. So cumbersome just means that you can't use it to overwatch if things are actually charging to you. So a little bit of a downside there. Yeah,
it's an artillery piece. Like, yeah, you can't use them to overwatch. Yeah.
So this here is where it starts getting mental. So you roll 2 artillery dice to determine the number of hits, and it's equal to the numbers that you roll. If you roll 1 misfire, it gets -1 to hit, but still does the number on the second dice. If you roll 2, it doesn't fire at all, and it loses a wound. You've got 7 wounds. It's not, doesn't matter. And then you roll applying any modifiers with the crew's ballistic skill. So this thing could just delete a unit in one turn.
Yeah, and you've got ballistic skill 4 as well, it's worth pointing out. So it's better than a dwarf organ gun crew, which have ballistic skill 3. And although, yes, you're getting the -1 over 9-inch range, so it's closer than a normal dwarf organ gun, you're mobile with that and a heavy chariot. Like, so you can be charging into stuff. It's I think really good, or at least really cool, and fairly solid. Like, whether or not it makes it into the best tournament list you've ever seen, not convinced. But I don't think you need it to. It's really good.
You have got one extra upgrade, which is the Skullcracker, which for 10 points upgrades it to impact hits 2d6 plus 2, and it gains the Armor Bane 1 special rule. So that there would make it not so much of an artillery piece, but some of a better heavy chariot.
Yeah, because it replaces the steam cannonade with the Skullcracker.
Yeah. which then throw this into anything you can get it near. And again, it will delete units just in a different way. And with its toughness 7, you're getting it there. It does kind of make the Hellbound rule a little less effective, because now it doesn't re-roll any of its artillery dice because it doesn't have the steam cannonade.
Yeah.
But getting that 6-up board for it is really, really good. So, yeah, amazing.
It's a toss-up, isn't it? If it's like 35 points for that Hellbound option, it just makes it more of a question whether or not you take it than if you're using it with the steam cannonade. I would always take it with that Hellbound, because then your Infernal Engineer can babysit that other that other artillery piece that's in the list.
Yep.
Like, speaking of which, let's go on to the other artillery pieces that are in the list. So you've got the Dreadquake Mortar for 165 points. It's toughness 7, 4 wounds, which is higher than other artillery pieces at the same time. You've got Chaos Dwarf Crew, which is 3 at toughness 4, and like 3s across the board other than that. Leadership 9, because it's Dwarf Crew. If you take an Ogre Loader, you get Strength 4 on that Ogre with +2 wounds to the crew, +2 attacks for 20 points. And I definitely take it because the model's great. You've got a Dreadquake Mortar, which is 12 to 72 inch range, Strength 3, or 6 if you hold someone, -3 AP only if you hold someone. It's got the Bombardment, Cumbersome, Move or Shoot, multiple wounds D6, but that's only in effect if you actually hold someone, Quake, and Slow Reload. You can take the Hellbound special rule to mean you don't have to get babysitted by an Infernal Engineer. I think you're definitely going to want one hanging around anyway, so whether or not you actually take that Hellbound special rule versus the Infernal Engineer and also get the level 2, or the level 1 or 2, I don't know. I would go with the level 2, just to have around. The Dreadquake Mortar special rules. Quake, until your next starter turn subphase, any or units, friend or foe, that are within 2d6 of the central hold of the blast template after scattering suffer -1 to their move and can't use Swift Stride. And that's a massive one against cavalry, because it can really upset people's like the charge calculations for when they're factoring that in. And the Slow Reload, you're unable to shoot. If this weapon is shot during your previous turn, you're unable to shoot this turn. Roll a d6 before shooting with this weapon on a 1 or 2. The slow and ponderous reload process has not yet been completed and you don't shoot. If you've got an Ogre Loader, apply a +1 modifier to this roll, which is why you're always going to take the Ogre Loader for 20 points. Rather than missing out on a third of your shots, you're only going to miss out on 1 in 6.
Yep. Now, I wouldn't take the steam carriage with this.
Why is that?
Because it's got bombardment.
Yeah.
I don't really... It can shoot out of line of sight, so I don't really see the point. And if you've got Hellbound, for one, or if you've got an engineer near it, you can re-roll the scatter. You can re-roll the scatter or the artillery.
See, I think you've just had better luck with your scatter and artillery dice than I have, because I think actually being in line of sight and just being able to move around so that you stay outside of that 12, I think there's worth to that. And then even like having the Ogre so that you're better in combat, although you're not the best ever, it just means that you can be a bit safer with the Ogre. It just playing around with it. I think for 10 points it's worth the upgrade for the steam carriage.
I don't know. You see, I because with the way the bombardment rule works, you still go the distance that you still go the direction the hit dice shows, don't you? And you minus off your ballistic skill, right? So I can re-roll the artillery die to try and get a lower amount, I'll still minus off my ballistic skill, so it almost becomes pinpoint.
I see. I would not re-roll if I've not misfired. Like I just don't think it's worth like chancing that misfire.
If I have if I have somebody with Infernal Engineer, I've got them near it all the time. I don't know. I think I would risk it. So that's where I wouldn't take that. But it's interesting to hear that you
in line of sight, and then just being able to manipulate that by like running around and getting that hit a third of the time, and just like, you've been holed to. Like, here's a 5-inch blast. Like, just directly on the unit. Doing strength 3 hits, but... Yeah, I mean, the times I've used trebuchets, man, and they've just gone completely wild and never hit anything the entire game.
I think the thing with this as well, which is really interesting, it's not always about hitting the unit, it's just always getting near the unit, because that quake is the most useful. It's not about killing things with this, I don't think. I think it's about just actually reducing that movement, getting rid of swift stride.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good shout for it, like, not firing even in the first turn, and then the second turn when your opponent's gone up to set a charge, because they're going to be, a lot of the time with the heavy cav, like, racing to get into charge range for that second turn charge.
Yeah.
I think dropping it then on you, if you've gone first on the second turn, if you've gone second, you drop it on the first turn, just near that cav unit, and meaning that they can't swift stride. Now they don't get to charge; they have to go and set up. Yeah, I think it, although it's slow reload, it almost plays into that a little bit, and like saving. Yes, you might not do the damage across the game, but stopping a unit getting charged by a heavy cav unit is just such a bonus for 100.
Yeah.
I'm going to call it 195 points, including the steam carriage and ogre. I think he's really worthwhile.
Yep.
So on to Magma Cannon, 125 points. You've got steam carriage is 10 points, 135 points, because everyone wants a train, right? You've got basically fire throwers, hand weapon, and heavy armor. You can take Hellbound for 30 points and have a steam carriage, as I said, for 10 points. Now, fire throwers aren't the most effective thing in the world in this edition. It's because they don't cause the auto panic checks anymore that flame cannons used to. However, for 125 points base, I think it's a little bit of a steal.
135. Because I think with these, you can't take these without the steam carriage. You can't take them without the steam carriage.
What? Because it's so useful for getting around the flanks of enemies.
Yeah, but it doesn't have the range either.
So it can get to the 24-inch, I think it is, for a flame cannon, but yeah, you're relying on the artillery dice so much. Whereas when you start getting into the flanks of units, you've got such a longer distance to be able to be fully accurate. I'm saying, for anyone listening, I'm doing the hand motion of fully accurate in commas, because you've got a longer leeway to guess and roll that dice before you completely pass over the unit. I don't like them much in the dwarf list, but with the ability to move, I actually quite like the magma cannon in the Chaos Dwarf list.
But I like it. I would always just take the steam carriage, but I like it. I do like this. I think it's great. It's tough as 6, which is not like the the Dreadquake. 3 wounds, but you've got your Iron Demon that people are probably going to be targeting first, because that thing is just a menace completely.
Because it's a chariot organ gun. Yeah.
Yeah. We need to do the Death Shrieker, by the way.
Yeah, that's next. So let's do the Death Shrieker, and then we'll go back to the Bolt Thrower and then Hell Cannon. So the Death Shrieker, 120 points, toughness 6, 3 wounds as per. You've got Chaos Dwarf Crew. You've got Demolition Rockets, Infernal Incendiaries, Hand Weapons, and Heavy Armour. You can be mounted on a Steam Carriage and Hellbound as per. Basically, it is a template that's Strength 3 and 6 if it's hold, AP -3 if they're hold, Armour Bane 1 for everything, Bombardment, Cumbersome, Move or Shoot, multiple wounds D6 under the hull for the Demolition Rockets. And the Infernal Incendiaries, Strength 3 for either, Bombardment, Cumbersome, Flaming Attacks, Move or Shoot. And it's a 5-inch blast rather than a 3-inch on the Demolition Rockets. And if the enemy suffers any unsaved wounds, they must take a panic check as if they suffered heavy casualties. I think it is good for 120 points. Like, just playing with your opponent's army all the time, forcing the checks all the time.
Yeah. I like it because the thing is, it's got versatility. So if you're against a Horde army, usually Horde armies don't have a good armor save. So you go with the Infernal Incendiaries. Tell you what, look at this against Orcs and Goblins. Yeah. I'm shooting at Orcs, I'll use the Demolition Rockets. I'm shooting at Goblins, I'll use the Incendiaries.
But it's still only Strength 3 outside of the hull. But
yeah, but the thing is, though, you've got the Armour Bane and multiple wounds. You've got more chances of actually
I suppose,
getting rid of an Orc who's got armour, rather than using the Incendiaries where you're doing the thing. If you go into an event, this thing is your Swiss Army knife on both, isn't it, really? You can do everything with it.
Yeah, and I like it as an option. I do still like the Dreadquake Mortar because of that playing with the movement, but I think they both play into each other, like the different phases that you're just messing with, like forcing panic check after panic check with the Infernal Incendiaries versus like denying swift strides and lowering movement values. And he's not relying on casting values, you're just doing this stuff. I know you've got to roll the artillery dice, you might get a misfire, but it's more reliable than casting spells to force panic checks and things like that.
Imagine it this, right? You use the Death Shrieker and you cause a panic check. Then in the next turn, you use the Dreadquake. So even though that unit's rallied, it can only move 1 inch. So it can only move -1 inch. So you've got it that's run off and still can't come back enough.
Yeah.
Next turn, Death Shrieker, and all you're doing is making it more and more take less part of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's...
I think I really like the Death Shrieker.
Agreed. So let's go on to the I'm going to call the Hobgoblin Bolt Thrower lone unit, but it's within the list. It's a 45-point Bolt Thrower that is a Goblin Bolt Thrower, essentially. Bolt Throwers are really good, and for 45 points, I know it's Ballistic Skill 3 rather than the Ballistic Skill 4 that we saw on the Organ Gun Iron Demon. Although it's Ballistic Skill 3, Bolt Throwers are really solid. 45 points, just like you can just start chancing them. And I know hitting on 5s at long range seems low. For 45 points, they are absolutely terrifying. They only need to kill 2 Bretonnian Knights to get their points back, or 2 Knights of any sort. And at -3 AP are the best thing for ignoring armour in any list at ranged. Because even cannons are AP -2. Like, I know you've got Armour Bane, but who can rely on Armour Bane?
You can take 4 of them in 2,000 points. And they're in the special choice, which means that it's not as contested as the rare. Yeah, I would take 4. I would just put 4 in every list, by the way. I would just put 4 in every list.
Yeah, agreed. It's because they're all on separate lists from them, like the Magma Cannon and Death Shrieker and the Quake, and what we'll just come on to, the Hell Cannon. you can have so much artillery packed into this list, and the bolt throwers are where your high AP are.
Just give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
So for 780 points, you can get 4 bolt throwers, a Iron Demon, a Death Shrieker, and a Dreadquake Mortar in your list. The 2 have got Steam Cannonade. I haven't had the Hellbound rule in, but you've got 780 points of artillery in there, and some of it will just mess with people's days completely.
Yeah. And you had the Death Shrieker in there as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just an artillery heavy list in a literal train. It's just quite an enjoyable sight to see one of them on the table of all the models. And enough bolt throwers there to absolutely terrify someone. So finally, Phil, let's go on to the Hell Cannon. And this is 215 points. It competes with the Dreadquake Mortar in the list. It is, what to say about it? It's strength 5, toughness 6, 5 wounds, 5 attacks because it's a chained demon, with leadership 4 on the actual cannon. The Chaos Dwarves are leadership 9 to make up for it. And you get 3 of them as crew. You've got an armor value 4+ overall. The Hell Cannon has Doomfire, which is basically a 3-inch blast mortar, which is strength 5 and in brackets 10 for the whole. AP -2, brackets -5. Bombardment, cumbersome, move or shoot multiple wounds, D3. This is where you're going to be killing like higher armor value targets in like sort of a bombardment sense. Now, I've covered this during the Warriors of Chaos review. It's got a bunch of special rules. Ensorcelled weapons affecting the Hell Cannon's 5 attacks is really good for that -1, as well as the crews, which they're strength 3, so not as good. It's got impact hits D6 if it goes charging off. Regeneration 6, terror, unbreakable. It's a bit of a beast overall. I think it's a good addition to the list if you can find the points to put in a Hell Cannon. I think they're fairly solid in the anti-armor capacity. I just think they're competing with a lot of things personally. Like, I don't know what your opinion is on it, Phil, but I think they're competing with a lot of things that you want to be putting in as a Chaos Dwarf special.
So, it's really, the Hell Cannon's really good. It's a really solid artillery piece. And if I was just going really artillery heavy with this army, I think I'd forgo the Hobgoblin Khans and forgo the Wolf Riders to then put this in. The Infernal Engineer still affects this.
Yeah.
So you've got a little bit of reliability with it. I like it. The question is, would I take it? And now I know it's a Chaos Dwarf made weapon, but I would probably lean more to the things that are in the Chaos Dwarf list. Does that make sense?
Do you know why I wouldn't? It doesn't have a carriage.
Yeah, and that's the other thing as well.
It can't be put on a carriage. And it's just a bit of a buzzkill for the Hell Cannon, sadly. What a ridiculous reason to not recommend the Hell Cannon. What a ridiculous reason. But I think that would be my reason for not. I think the AP in the bolt throwers is obviously higher overall, and because you can have 4 of them and it's cheaper than having a Hell Cannon, it's hard to recommend the Hell Cannon just for the AP value.
Yeah.
And yes, it's unreliable. It can go crazy. It can kill its own handlers. It's good in combat if it gets charged by light cav and stuff, or if it just gets charged by anything. It's fairly good. It's good in combat because it's high toughness, high strength, high attacks.
It's not high toughness though, because you go against the toughness of the.
They've got no toughness. You fight the hell cannon.
Ah,
Yeah,
right. Okay,
yeah.
that's how they
Phil's
get
not
rid of
looking at.
that.
Everyone
Right.
else is looking at the page, but Phil's not looking at it because
Yeah.
he can't see my screen at the moment. So yeah, it's a good addition to the list, but I again, it's like with the Black Orcs. I just struggle to recommend them when if you've got a really big Chaos Dwarf army and have played it a lot, yes, start including this sort of stuff that you won't see in anyone else's army. But there's not enough Chaos Dwarf armies about. Take your special stuff would be my recommendation.
Yeah. Take your stuff that people aren't going to see, the cool stuff, where they're like, oh, what's that model? Oh, it's this and it does that. Not, oh, you've taken a Hell Cannon. I've just played against my mate who's got Chaos, and my other mate who's got Chaos, and my other mate who's got Chaos. So that's where I would sit. I'm not sitting on the fence. I've jumped over the fence onto the side of the Chaos Dwarf.
Yeah. So that concludes our Chaos Dwarf rundown. Phil, have you got anything to add in closing thoughts?
No, I really like the list. I think it does a lot of things. You can, again, kind of like many of the other Chaos lists, it can be infantry heavy, it can be cavalry heavy, it can be artillery heavy. So you've got a lot of different ways to play it, and it's really good. It'd be really good to start seeing these armies in different ways that people play them. But I really like it.
Yeah.
Coming to a YouTube channel soon.
Hopefully. Yeah, not much more to add there. I think it's a solid list, and like he's balanced, but up there. I think you can go shooting, you can go combat, sorcery, and artillery with a choo-choo train. If you do like this video, don't forget to do all the YouTubey stuff, like, comment, and subscribe. If you can't get the Thomas the Tank Engine theme tune out of your head after this review, there is a Patreon link below where you can call Phil over Discord or myself and just badger us into never mentioning Thomas the Tank again. There's also early access videos, audio podcast formats from your podcast app of these videos, as well as dice to Patreon subscribers. And with that, we'll catch everyone next time in a bit.
See you later.